Another sky scene today, this time looking at the highlights and shadow colours in sunset clouds. We're using titanium white, cadmium yellow hue, cadmium orange hue, alizarin crimson and a bit of burnt umber as well. So these are all absolutely standard paints, the sort of thing you'd meet in any landscape kit. And what I'm looking for here is a quick recipe that's going to get us the sort of character that you can very quickly throw into a sky like this if you're painting plein air just at the end of a day. Okay, so the first two colours are super easy. You are going to need to tint them way more than you initially think. I'll show you a little trick in a minute as to how you can see how close you are to the mix you're after. First one, let's start with the lightest of the colours, the yellow. And what we're going to do is going to take some of the titanium white and unsurprisingly mix into that some of the cadmium yellow. Now what's really important with this is that you put the colour into the white, not the other way around, because otherwise you're going to waste a load of white paint chasing a colour, and these are really intensely tinting paints. Now the trick to see how close you are, and I've deliberately mixed one off screen here that's the wrong colour, here it is to look along the length of your palette knife, and you can see there that you can see the end of the palette knife, it looks wrong. So if you're pointing that at your subject off into the distance, it's quite easy to check your colour. You can see here that we've got a really good match. It's difficult to see where the end of the palette knife is, but with this one it's really obvious that it's a lot lighter. So there you go, that's how you're going to check, just to see what's going on. Anyway, ignoring the behind the scenes moment there, so that is our light, and I'm going to use that as a modifier, so I'm going to park that up here, and we'll come back to that in a few moments. Okay, I'm going to do exactly the same now with the orange. And with this one, we want a very light, peachy kind of orange. So as with the yellow, these are only hues, so these are synthetic equivalents of the actual cadmium pigments, but they're still pretty intensely staining. A lot of the synthetic pigments are. These are all Daler and Rowney Georgian range, by the way. That's what I tend to use in the way of student quality paints, that or Winsor Newton Winton range, all very reliable colours. That is a bit washed out. I'll come in with a bit more orange into that one, just bring it in at the edge. I think a little bit more. That's getting closer. I think just one more little taste here and that'll be us. Yeah, that looks about right. It's not an exact science, this. You're creating a piece of art, not doing a slavish copy of nature, so don't get too hung up on having absolutely perfect mixes. We can get pretty close. Okay, so now the tricky one. Now, the reason that this is tricky is because it's a bit of a balancing act. We're going to start off with 1 part white to 1 part burnt umber. And that's going to give us a dark that we can then tint. Well, not tint. We can then pink it up a bit. So this is going to give us a dark, but we want a pinky dark. I mean, this isn't a million miles off, just as it is. In a scrape, and if I'd run out of alizarin crimson I'd probably just run straight with that. However, in this instance, I've got some here. I'm just going to put a tiny little suggestion of that through it. Just give it a little bit of warmth. Tiny little bit more. Okay, so there's our third colour. Now the secret sauce. What we're going to do with these, because you want the sky to be harmonious, you want it all to be in the same value range, nothing too bright, nothing too dark, nothing too chromatic, nothing too tinted out. We're going to create a range of colours from the dark via the medium to the light as a series of swatches, and then to keep the picture interesting we're going to dip into the various different colours here and there, rather than having just one colour mixed through the whole thing. Now you've seen me do this a number of times now, so there won't be any surprises what I'm about to do, but basically I am going to take some of that first swatch and then mix the middle colour into it. Now a hint for you when you're mixing with any of the cadmium colours is watch out, they are very, very potent, especially if you're using the real pigments. Just as an aside actually, Georgian cadmium yellow does contain some traditional cadmium pigment, as does the red, and for that reason I certainly recommend them. They are very, very good quality paints for the money, only about £3, £4 a tube, something like that. So compared to the £35 that you'd spend on a tube of artist quality cadmium yellow, that really isn't too offensive. Okay, so I'm going to just keep on bringing this along. We can kind of adjust any of these others that are a bit too light or a bit too dark as we go. I'm happy with that. So at this point I'm going to drop the rest of that in here, and then we're going to carry on the sequence with some of the highlight colour. I should say low light because the light's coming from underneath in this scene. Okay, we're getting to the other end of the scale. I'll just put a bit more yellow into this one. And we're looking good. So there we go, ranging from the darks via the mediums to the lights. Because these have all been mixed from the same base mix via those two modifiers, everything is in balance. Nothing's going to stick out like a sore thumb, which is a real issue if you're using different tubes and quickly splatting other colours into a picture. So this is going to keep everything tonally balanced, which is really important for realism, especially in impressionist painting, but pretty much any kind of landscape. It's very, very important to make sure that everything sits harmoniously. As I say, as this colour gradient, you can basically adjust these as you go. They're going to get messy as you're dipping your brush in various different swatches. Just keeps things interesting rather than having just three colours and doing everything as a very sterile version of events. So there we go, some fantastically useful landscape colours there, and an approach to developing them that's going to keep things in harmony and give you lots of variety in your finished picture. So I hope that's been useful to you today. If it has, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you next time. Cheers.